A premium account on Twitter.
We're live.
Yo, we're live.
We'll do it live.
What's going on, faithful? This is your boy, the coach, here with Jessie Naylor. We're on location based out of San Jose, California, coming to you from the first 49ers padded practice. And we were both there, Jessie. As you can see, we're sitting here trying to just really kind of pace through the best of what we saw. We went about through 11 periods today. With the 11 periods that we went through, we had 2 team periods included with 1 red zone period. And before we get into like everything that happened, let's just go ahead and get into just brass tacks of how practice felt. How did it feel coming on early on?
Yeah, I told you, for me, like I was there last year, obviously.
Right.
And for me, I noticed right away that I'm not going to go off a feel. I'm just going to let you know the first observation.
Right.
The defensive line looked really small. Really, really small.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, seeing Kinlaw in person, seeing Armstead in person, it was clear that these were some big boys, right? Like they're massive, massive human beings.
Mm-hmm.
This year, the 49ers don't have that. I mean, the only 2 guys that were I always call them fat daddies.
Right.
The only 2 guys that were fat daddies were guys that might not make this team. And Kalia Davis, and then I forget the other dude's name even.
Sam Okinawa.
No.
The UDFA for
No. That's the DN. I'm talking about the defensive tackle.
Oh, Evan Anderson.
Evan Anderson. There we go.
Yeah.
So those are 2 guys that are borderline not going to make this team.
Right.
And for me, those are your biggest bodies in the middle. That was a little concerning. I would say the juice of the overall practice really wasn't there either.
Right.
Now, I will say it's the first padded practice. So there's a good chance that with the first padded practice, they're just not all getting all the way into things.
Right.
They only did 2 full 11-on-11 move the ball periods. Most of the time in practice, they do 3. They also didn't do any one-on-one drills. So it was just light overall.
Yeah. I mean, because it was the first padded practice, I don't want to say they were going through the motions, but I didn't see the intensity early on in the practice. There wasn't a lot of intensity. One thing that I will say is that you did see some hard coaching with a couple of, let's just be honest. Spencer Burford's not there. Joe Feliciano was not practicing. Trent Williams obviously was not practicing. And those are 3 major guys that they're needed for the offensive line. I know we're talking about what the offensive line needed to do as far as upgrades throughout the offseason and possibly getting some guys in through the draft. But depth-wise, we struggled today. Parker, left tackle, struggled today. Drake Nugent struggled mightily today. Nick Zakelj struggled mightily today. There was one point where we were going through practice and it seemed as though Aaron Banks needed a blow in between periods. We had a red zone period. I want to say, what period was our red zone period?
Red zone, it was right after they went through the first period and moved the ball. They're saying your mic is low, by the way.
Oh, sorry. My mic literally did go low.
Oh, did it? Oh, that thing pulled down?
The fader pulled down on accident. Sorry, guys.
All right.
Sorry. But what we did want to bring up is the fact that they had struggles on the interior offensive line today. I mean, across the whole line. Jalen Moore struggled. Parker struggled. Drake Nugent struggled. Nick Zakelj struggled. At one point, we were trying to see if Aaron Banks was going to actually show a little bit of toughness today because Javon Hargraves was getting after him today. If you looked at the interview post-practice where Aaron Banks had lauded Javon Hargraves for how he looks this season, it's true. Javon Hargraves has gotten in shape. He looks better.
Yes.
He's lost some weight. He's lost some fat, a little bit of girth, and he looks better. But outside of that, him sticking out in our defensive line interior wise was something that you just didn't see last year. But you see it this year now. I don't know how that bodes. I don't know how that bodes for the defensive front down the line, but you didn't see a lot of competing today in the trenches. I didn't see it. What do you think, Jess?
No, I agree with that. But again, like I said, we didn't see any one-on-one drills at all.
Right.
And who knows? Maybe that is because of a lot of injury, but the offensive line was really, really bad. And
yeah.
I don't know. I've got to imagine that all the other content creators are coming away with the same exact thing, that the offensive line's bad. If they came away with anything different, then I would say, I don't know what the hell you're watching. The offensive line was borderline unbearable. I mean, they couldn't even, to me, the full 11 on 11 move the ball drills were almost pointless and a waste of time because they couldn't even get some plays off. Now, the other part is yes, you don't technically sack the quarterback, so the quarterback can extend plays, but when the pocket is collapsing all around him, I mean, it's just ugly, ugly stuff. The red zone period, whenever you have the offense in a red zone period, that's advantage offense. They should be putting up multiple touchdowns. Usually when you hear touchdowns in practice, this is just for everybody. So if you hear touchdowns in practice, 99% of the time, they're coming from the red zone periods. That's when all of the touchdowns are scored for the most part. There was hardly anything scored.
They didn't move the ball at all.
They couldn't move the ball.
They could not move the ball at all.
Yeah.
Offensively, they struggled on move the ball. Like Jesse just brought up, if there's any touchdowns or there's anybody trying to glaze over performances, that was red zone. All right. So they were already within striking distance. One thing that I will say is, giving up sacks on team periods is something where if you're not paying attention, you kind of have to gauge whether or not a sack was given up because they're going to keep playing through, right? They're going to play through. So in order for you to be able to ascertain how the offensive line was doing, there was some points during both team periods and red zone period where the D line had won so quick into the development of the play that they just had to let the play keep going just so the offense could get a look, right? If they played it true to form and stopped the play every time there was a sack, stopped the play every time somebody got touched in the backfield, stopped the play whether somebody jumped off sides. There people were jumping on sides today.
Yeah, there was.
Like, it just wasn't bad play, but it was mental errors that were happening in this game. In this practice. Period 8 was 8 minutes, okay? And in that 8-minute period, there was a pick by Brock, all right, in the red zone. The play was blown dead because it was already a sack before he threw the pick, all right? I
didn't see it. Are you talking about the pick on Brock?
Yeah.
I didn't see it. I don't think he was I disagree. I think both of his picks were on him.
I think the offensive line didn't do him any favors on his first pick. That's what I saw. But for context,
he threw across his body for no reason.
That's true. But for context, I did most of the watching in the trenches while we were going through. So for context, I didn't necessarily see exactly where the ball was going once Brock left his hands because I was so focused on the line of scrimmage. After the red zone period, they had a red zone period. I think that was period 8 for 8 minutes. Period 9 was a 10-minute period afterwards. And in that period, in the period 9, you could see that the defensive line actually earned their rest. They did punt return. They started working on specials during period 9, and the D-line earned their rest after the red zone period.
Yeah.
Coach Forrester was visibly bothered.
He was.
Visibly bothered after that red zone period. And you would like to think that if the entire D-line is getting a blow for a period, then the O-line is going to get a blow for a period, right? That did not happen. Coach Forrester took the offensive line right back into the corner and basically went over the entire red zone period again with them to start coaching up all of the errors, the run fits, the stunts, and the twists and turns that they were not picking up on for the defensive line. And it was just a point of reference where you could see that even without Spencer Burford and Trent Williams and Joe Feliciano, the depth is something that is just not there for the offensive line. Drake Nugent, he had some flashes of tenacity. He's a tough player. He's wide, girthy. But Garrett Kingston, he's playing out of position as well. They don't have enough tackles. They have him slotted as a guard, and with him playing at tackle, he was kind of getting moved around today. So, if we just had to just stick with the trenches, we need Trent back as soon as possible. Joe Feliciano needs to get back. to be able to see exactly what type of veteran leadership we can put on side in the interior. And we got to sign Trent. We have to sign Trent. What do you feel after seeing today's practice?
No, I agree with that. I just want to talk about this comment real quick. Clarzard says, didn't Josh Allen throw 5 straight picks in practice? First of all, I don't know.
Right.
Second of all, we're covering the 49ers. We're at the 49ers practice, not the Bills practice. And we've got to get to a point where you can hear us tell you what happened on a play. Not criticizing Brock. I'm just letting you know the interception that he threw on that play, he threw a crossbody for no reason. That's something he has to clean up. That's not saying he's not going to have a good season, but we have to get to a point where you can hear us be honest about what's happening at practice for all players, including Brock Purdy, who may or may not be your favorite player. I'm just throwing that out there. Like we have to understand that we're going to be honest about what we saw. We're not making any sweeping judgments about how the season's going to go, but that's what you're going to get from us, is you're going to get an honest breakdown of all of it. And on that play, that's the way that I saw that play going. All right. That being said, as far as signing Trent Williams, yeah, I mean, every day that goes by, this is our first day there, is the first day in pads. So I'm glad the timing worked out. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Trent Williams has all the leverage in the world. All of the leverage in the world.
They have to sign him.
They have to sign him. And the depth is already being tested on the O-line. One of the reasons last year that the 49ers were able to make it as far as they did was because the injuries were in their favor. They weren't severely injured. And this year, we're already starting off on the wrong foot. The depth is being tested. You've got Nick Zakelj starting at center. You've got Pooney starting at right guard, who's your rookie. You got Feliciano out with some knee issue. Brendell's taking every other day off. I imagine that's due to the knee tendonitis that was reported during OTAs. Mm-hmm. And then you've got Burford with a broken hand and no Trent Williams. I mean, we're talking about 3/5 of the offensive line is not healthy from last year. What are we talking about? I mean, there's no depth. There's no depth.
I think they know it.
Yeah.
I think they know it. And what's emblematic of that was no one-on-ones today.
Yeah.
Right. Even without Nick Bosa.
Yeah.
They didn't have one-on-ones.
Yeah.
I don't think that one-on-ones is a very revealing drill. All right. It kind of, it's strength on strength. Iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
With Trent not in, and even with Nick Bosa not in, they still opted not to go one-on-ones. They know that if they stretch that offensive line out thin and go one by one, everybody's losing. Everybody's going to struggle. It's just not something that they wanted to do in front of the fans, quite honestly. I really feel that way because there were moments in practice where the offensive line was a hindrance to us getting through the practice. We could not get a look.
Yeah.
You couldn't get a look.
Yeah.
Right. So with that, Trent's got all the leverage in the world. There's nothing that we can do. Now, what I will say is, like, let's kind of rewind back and just kind of look at practice from a defensive perspective,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Malik Mustafa is impressive.
Yeah, he is.
He's impressive.
Yeah.
Okay. Malik Mustafa was the first guy out at practice and pre-practice today. Got out and got to work immediately. Second guy that was out there right with him was Jair Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Another guy that, and you know what? You actually corrected me. At one point, you was like, man, Jair Brown looks good. He's like really a big safety. And I was like, he's not that big. And then he stood next to Malik Mustafa, and I was like, okay.
Well, but that was kind of my point, is that I think Jair Brown is put together and built well, but next to Malik Mustafa, it's like, dog, like what is going on here?
Levels.
Yeah,
there's
levels.
Levels.
Insane. It's insane. Because you look at Hufanga, Hufanga's small.
Yeah, he's not.
I mean, he's put together, right?
Exactly.
I'm not, but compared, when I saw Jair Brown last year next to Hufanga, I was like, oh man,
right,
he's put together, right? And now I'm looking at Mustafa going, okay. I mean, it's kind of crazy.
It is. I mean, I will say, like, watching them play, Jair Brown had a nasty hit on Deebo Samuel in team and move the ball drill. Right now, you could say that I feel pretty much confident saying that the most impressive unit of our defense is our secondary right now. They were flying around. Isaac Yiadom looked just bodies that you haven't seen with the Niners and their secondary before. It's going to be good to see. Isaac Adam, this is something that you brought up right away. His length,
Mm-hmm.
very long,
Yeah.
very twitchy athlete.
Yeah.
Mooney didn't play in any of the team periods today. He didn't practice in any of the team periods today, but in drills, he looked very good.
Yeah.
Looked stout, in shape. Same with Demo. Demo looked good. Sammy Womack looked like he put on some weight.
Yeah.
He looked good. So, and then if you want to go right into our linebackers, Jalen Graham.
I told you he's the truth, right?
Yeah.
Just kid. I'm telling you, Jalen Graham. The problem is Jalen Graham is seated behind Fred Warner. So his path to the field is not likely.
Right.
But man,
he's one in waiting.
He's good.
He's waiting. He's got tons of confidence. He almost kind of moves with the swagger. Like he knows he's waiting. Like he knows that my time is coming. There's no need to press. I've been already told that, they're very impressed with my skill set. He moves like a leader too. He's very vocal. One thing I'll say about Jalen Graham is that they were actually doing a tag. They were doing a duo pass zones drill where it was D Winters and Jalen Graham were on the field together, and they look good. I mean, it was just like a glimpse of the future. One thing I will say is that for what it's worth right now, Devondre Campbell seems to be fitting in. I don't know what he's going to do, but he seems to be fitting in really well with the defense. He's very vocal with Fred Warner. Fred, on the other hand, I'll tell you, we both noticed this. Fred has picked up weight. I think they're getting ready for a rough and tough season, honestly. Some of the guys on defense, Javon Hargraves is in shape. Fred Warner looks like he picked up weight, but good weight. That's something that we had questioned to see, like, man, can he still run? He was running all over the place today.
He was.
Malik Mustafa and Jair Brown, we touched on. Demo looked good today. Isaac Yadam. You know who else looked good? One of our old guys, Rock Ya-Sin.
Yeah, he did.
Rock Ya-Sin looked good today. He was covered in latex though. He had tights on. He had a tight bodysuit under his pants. He is not trying to pull anything, but you could tell he's one of those guys that picks his spots, right? We saw that today. We also got a chance to get a little bit of a preview of Ricky Pearsall. His first day back, he was in pads. One thing that you did quite a lot of observation of him during special teams. Tell me what you saw, man.
Yeah, so they were doing a bunch of different special teams drills, punt return drills, just not necessarily the full return, but just receiving the punt. And one of the drills they were doing, they started just receiving them. Then they went to a ball in one hand and then trying to catch the ball in the other hand. Then they did a drill where they had a ball in the hand, and right before the other ball that was being punted to them came to them, they would throw that ball in the air, they would catch the ball, and then they would try to catch the ball they threw in the air.
Right.
He was the only one that was consistently catching the punted ball without bobbling it.
Yeah.
Everybody else either had a drop on a punt, or like muffed it in some way, or even Trent Taylor didn't muff it, but he was bobbling the ball. It wasn't a clean catch. So I got to say, Ricky Pearsall, at the very least, like that might be a path for him onto the field as a punt returner. And I think however you can get your first round pick on the field, however that happens, like that's a good idea.
Yeah, they're trying to. Kyle mentioned it after the practice that they're trying to find a lot of creative ways to get him ramped up without exerting too much energy. One thing that I will say is that we can answer that question right there.
Well, there's a lot of them. I got a bunch starred. There's a bunch of really good questions. So keep asking questions, and I'm trying to catch them as we go. I'm going to star them so that we can go through here in a minute and just start firing off your guys'
100%,
questions.
100%. Yeah. While we do that, today was a little bit of a light practice in terms of periods. There were only 11 periods today. There were only 3 periods that were over 10 minutes, and the other 2 big periods were 8 minutes. The rest of that, they had 5-minute periods, 1 minute and 90-second periods to kind of catch a blow and keep things moving. You could tell that they were very efficient as far as trying to get through the itinerary of practice. Kyle, on the other hand,
I told you, dude. Let me put this out there. So before, like a couple weeks before we left, Coach is asking me all these questions. First of all, really good questions. What'd you learn from last year, and really made me like critically think about it. And then, where are the coaches positioned usually? How does that work? And I was like, listen, Kyle is going to stand between the fields because here's the layout. You've got the bleachers on both sides of these two fields. You've got two fields side by side. Today they practiced on the far field away from our bleachers. Tomorrow they'll be on the closer field. Okay. In between the two fields, there's an obvious natural place to stand. That is where Kyle Shanahan is all the time.
Literally.
Except for in two situations. One situation where he comes in and he throws interceptions to the defense to get them warmed up.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one is when they go to move the ball periods, he stands behind the offense and he calls the plays. But other than that, Kyle doesn't coach anybody actively. No. He's throwing the football with either his kid. Today it was John Lynch. And he just kind of observes. So I'm not, listen, that's how he does things. I wasn't a football player other than high school, so I couldn't tell you how things are supposed to be done or how other head coaches do it. But that's just the observation that I make. I can say that last year, Steve Wilkes was very hands-on. Obviously, we know that he's no longer here. And both the defensive coordinators this year, Staley, who I'm going to consider a defensive coordinator, he's very hands-on, and Sorensen are both very hands-on. They're both getting involved regularly during the drills and what have you. So, that's just how Kyle does it. But it's funny because you would think as a head coach there would be a lot of teaching moments for him, whether it's the other coaches, whatever. Maybe he just goes back and watches practice and then has those private one-on-one conversations, and that's how he prefers to do it. But throughout practice, like, honestly, Kyle wouldn't even really have to be there. If he just walked out when they did 11 on 11,
nobody would notice.
It would be fine because he doesn't do anything else.
Yeah. He left much to be desired as far as like his bedside manner and how he coaches the team.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I'm not going to sit here and pontificate as if I know exactly what he's saying and not saying or doing and not doing. I'm not going to be disingenuous, but what I will say is that he's very much is a top-down leader. He kind of feels as though that, you can look at it from this standpoint. From our perspective, you could say Kyle seems disinterested, right? He seems a little bit aloof. He seems like he's kind of doing whatever he wants to do when when the mood suits him, but he's not necessarily locked in every time pushing through practice.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, you could say that from a fan standpoint because we are fans, right? But then you can also say from a coaching standpoint is that I don't have a micromanager as a coach. Right.
Yeah.
You could also look at it from a standpoint of, hey, when I got my unit going, man, we don't went through pre-practice. I already showed you my script. What the hell are you doing over here?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Sometimes when the boss is around, it can make people feel as though that competition really can't be organic.
Yeah.
Right. So that is something where you can kind of give Kyle that mulligan and say, all right, look, well, maybe, you're kind of noticing that you cast a big wake. You being around can kind of like alter and make people feel a little bit pushed against the wall. And maybe he's saying, you guys got your coaches. They'll be able to let you guys compete. You guys can go through and evaluate. Once it comes to me, then you'll hear the final word, but you don't need to really hear from me throughout the week. Now, that could be something that is viable. It just doesn't look like that.
The optics look bad. The optics are
bad optics.
It
so I'll also bring up just the size of the team. What did you think? I know we brought it up earlier in the stream, but Evan Anderson, Javon Hargraves, Malik Collins, like these guys, they're going to have to really bring a lot more effort because they're not get off the bus looking guys. They're not.
I think the days of the 49ers being the most physically imposing team are gone at this point. I think, and that doesn't, I mean, listen, that doesn't mean anything. There's plenty of, how many times have you seen
the Chiefs won the Super Bowl?
Yeah. How many times have you seen a fight and you're like, oh, that dude's going to win.
Exactly.
Based off how he looks. And you're like, oh, that didn't work out so well. So I get that. But, it was often that you watch the 2019 team and since then through the years where the commentary from a team that might have the 49ers on a, what's it called? On a nationally televised game, right?
Game.
Yeah, primetime game. That's what I was looking for. That might have the 49ers on a primetime game and they're seeing them for the first time in person, and they're looking at it, and then they say it on air frequently, like, "Wow, this team is built
It's
different. It's physically
different when you
imposing.
see
It's
them.
yes, they're much bigger than their opponent,
Mhm.
and that showed through on a regular basis. That is no longer the case.
Mhm.
All their big guys are gone. You know, before it was Buckner and Armstead, then it was Armstead and Kinlaw. The big guys up the middle are no longer
Those
there,
days are over.
and so that's it. But let's talk about some of the new guys for a second and how we think that they look. Devondre Campbell is massive.
He's a big boy.
He's a very, very big guy. Yeah.
Towering guy. I don't know about his dexterity as far as he can move, but as far as body is concerned, he looks the part.
Yeah.
He's definitely, I mean, he's bigger than Dre.
Much.
Yeah, much bigger than Dre.
Yeah.
And he's somebody who, you know, we'll see how it goes down the line, but he kind of faded. I didn't really see any splash plays from him or anything from him near any of the move the ball periods or even definitely in red zone.
Yeah.
Really didn't see him around the ball a lot. But as far as, you know, being able to just see if we got the athlete, we did.
Yeah.
Devondre Campbell is a pro athlete. As another guy that I wanted to touch on is Yetur Gross-Matos. He's an impressive looking edge.
He is. Yeah.
He is. He's going to help us this year. He's got girth, big, strong. He's got strong hands. One thing I like about Yetur Gross-Matos is that he covers a huge space area, a surface area, with only taking a couple of steps. He's got strong hands. I mean, at one point, him and what's my boy, number 91 to UDFA that we picked up?
Okinayo.
Oh yeah, Okinayo. They were just taking turns on Parker at tackle.
Yeah, that was.
They were having their wicked way with him, honestly. Yeah. So you know, we could talk about the D line, but there's also guys that we can also bring up that we were surprised about, pleasantly surprised about.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'll reserve things on Gross-Matos. I mean, he was having his way against third string tackles. He did jump off sides during the team drills. I've got that written down. He jumped off side during one of the plays. So, and you know, physically he does look great, but Carolina Panther fans said he's not any good, right? So, I mean, that doesn't mean he's not going to be good here. I just want to see it. I want to see him stack some practices and then see how it plays out in the game. But as far as like just first impression of how he looks great. Floyd is skinny, but he's built perfectly for a speed pass rusher. I mean, he's put together very well for that role. I think him opposite of Bosa is going to be an absolute problem. And one thing I'll say about Gross-Matos is, you know, maybe he's your down one guy because he can help against the run, but he'll probably be a guy that they put at DT on third downs to get after the quarterback as well.
Got the size to do it.
He's got some good size there. So, you know, we'll see how it plays out. But as far as those new guys go, I mean, very, very happy with what I saw, I would say, in practice one.
Yeah, I mean, also, I'll tell you who else looked good, who seems like they worked on their body on the offseason, is Robert Bill Jr.
Yeah.
He gained some weight.
He did.
He looked a lot bigger than he did coming in his rookie campaign.
Yeah.
He didn't really translate it to seeing anything on the field, though. But as far as, like, you know, guys that worked, Javon Hargraves, he worked. He worked over the offseason. You can tell.
Yeah.
Yetur Gross-Matos, you know, impressive looking edge. All right. Now, one thing I'll tell you is that Malik Collins, he's a small boy. He's small. He doesn't look like he's really going to do anything in the interior. I will say is that for as bad as the offensive line looked, I didn't see Malik Collins get in the backfield not once.
Well, I'll say this: he was matched up against Pooney a lot. Pooney did a really good job.
Okay.
I feel like that could be a Pooney thing. I think Pooney did. He was like the bright spot, I would say, of the offensive line was Pooney today.
Yeah.
So that was good. But then
Evan Anderson, I want to touch on this real quick.
Yeah, he's a big guy. Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So Marcos, I love you, but that 320 don't sit nice.
Yeah.
It don't sit nice.
Yeah.
I mean,
and I also question, is he going to make the rotation anyways, right? That was kind of the point, is that between him and Kalia Davis
is going to
those team those two guys are big, the biggest body guys they have in the interior. I would say depth chart wise, they're either pushed way down the depth chart, or they may not make the team. And so that's the problem. Like, those are the biggest bodies that they have, and I don't know if they're even going to play or impact games.
Yeah. On top of it is that just look at their skill sets.
Yeah.
These are the two biggest guys that we have. And if you're looking at Kalia Davis. Kalia Davis he's a interior pass rusher.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he does, right?
Yeah.
So being able to two gap and stop the run is something that is germane to his skill set.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Like, we got to play somebody else. We got to get more padded practice. I'm excited to see how tomorrow is.
Yeah, me too.
The offensive line should have left today's practice with a bad taste in their mouth.
I agree.
It was not good. All right, top to bottom. And yeah, there were some bright spots. I did not see Dominic Pooty getting completely dominated.
Mm-hmm.
I would have seen that. I did not. But for what it's worth, we can sit here and have a sit and wait campaign. This is something else that came up. Aaron Banks was asked about Trent Williams and when he's going to show up. Is Trent going to be able to show up and just kind of like be a force?
Mm-hmm.
He really didn't want to answer the question, but what he did say is that Trent Williams is going to show up and be Trent Williams.
Yeah.
Well, Trent Williams misses 3 games a year.
3 year, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Trent Williams, if he does not come to camp, he's going to be out of shape.
Mm-hmm.
That's just something that you can't go around. That doesn't have anything to do with you working off to the side, right? We saw what that practice was. Today was a light practice.
It was.
Would you say today was light?
Yeah, it was very light. Yes.
Today was a light practice. And there were some guys sucking on that water a little too hard. Pause. Like they were even a little gassed. Aaron Banks, okay, was a little gassed. So my thing is that if we're looking at guys exerting themselves in a soft first padded practice, what is Trent Williams and Brandon Ayuk for that matter? What are they doing? Yeah. Right? So you got to get him in the building as quick as possible because, like I said, I feel like there's a threshold of when getting Trent back is going to be pointless anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
He's going to miss 2 to 3 games anyway because that's just the soup we swim in. He's older in his career.
Yeah.
Not only we're going to have to do that, but if depending on when they get him signed and when he shows up, now we're going to have to be waiting into the season when Trent gets in shape.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you think that Trent is impervious to it, then all you got to do is look down the hall to the next locker at Nick Bosa. And it happened the very season before. Missed training camp, came in and admittedly said, yo, I was off a step.
Yeah.
I was off a beat. And it took me quite a while for me to get that run fit together, for me to get acclimated. So I'll tell you this. The last thing you want is Trent coming in later, trying to get in shape while he's playing and then warding off injury all at the same time. It's just not a recipe for success. And I think today, I'll put it like this. Offensively, you know who else they missed?
Who?
Brandon Ayuk.
Oh, yeah. Big time. Deebo Samuel.
We gonna get into it.
Deebo, I said in my 2-minute little rundown after practice that he couldn't get open against Yadam. He did get open once. It was a severe overthrow.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of that, he really couldn't create separation, especially in short areas. When they were in red zone, nothing. Isaac Yadam was putting shackles on him every single time. Now, either that means that Isaac Yadam's really good or Deebo Samuel is still the same Deebo Samuel. Maybe there's the truth lies somewhere in the middle, but Deebo cannot get open consistently at all. And there was times I forget where it's at. I'd have to go through and look at it, but Jawan Jennings, he had to play in the corner of the end zone.
That was a good play.
It was broken up by Renardo Green.
Odom.
No,
it was Renardo Green.
Yeah.
Odom had the pick.
Had the interception.
Yeah, it was Renardo Green.
Renardo Green did a great job against. I mean, they moved him around a little bit. They played him in the nickel. They played him outside. So I would say the receivers overall were not impressive.
Mm-hmm.
When you couple that with an offensive line that's not impressive, it's
defense won the day.
How do you move the ball? Yeah,
defense won the day.
Yeah,
let's just put it out there. And I know that there could be commentary of guys. It's practice. Why do you have to be so competitive? Because it's football, bro.
Yeah,
and everybody has to win and everybody has to lose. There's got to be a loser every day. I'm sorry. So today, defense won the day, and it wasn't close.
Yeah.
They couldn't run the ball. Speaking of running the ball, Jordan Mason, he looked good, man.
He does. He looks very good.
Jordan Mason looks really good.
Yeah.
Jordan Mason looked like a starter.
Yeah. let's get through these questions because we're starting to touch on some of the the green thing and Mason. So there's some like I said, I've been keeping tabs of some of your questions, some really good ones that I saw. So don't think that your questions are necessarily falling on deaf ears. I just want to keep the flow going and then we can get into them. So Brother Bob comes in, says $2. Coach can take Jesse. Both my boys though. They're late. Yeah, listen, this internet thing is a mother in this product, dude.
You don't know
you don't know half of it. These smiles we have when we might have started this stream, it wasn't good. Brother Bob says Lombardi will say O-line and Brock A+. Okay, gotta work. All right, see you, Brother Bob.
Yeah,
appreciate you. All right, so Clutch Gene, what's up, Marco? He says Jesse, should they sign Connor Williams? Should they call him? Yes. Yeah. He can play guard. He can play center. Absolutely. He's an upgrade over.
Let him be
anybody.
The team chaplain. He can do whatever he wants. Yeah. Let him be the president. We need Connor Williams in here.
And Seattle is looking to sign him. They're in contract talks with him. Nothing is imminent, but I don't want him to go to a division team. That's my biggest concern. I talked about this with Coach, is that if Connor Williams signs with Seattle, say what you want, but when I look at the Rams offensive line and I look at Seattle's offensive line, I'm concerned that they can kind of bully our defensive line a little bit. And then you add in the fact that the 49ers can't protect, at least the way it looks now.
No.
In the trenches, it would get really ugly in the division. And that's how you lose a division that you shouldn't. So I don't know. We'll see. But
there just doesn't seem to be a sense of urgency. I want to give them a break because it was the first day of pads. But there is a side.
But it wasn't the first day of practice either.
Yes.
Right?
And I didn't see a sense of urgency. I didn't. Especially on offense. It was the fact that, I saw Coach Forrester. Coach Forrester was visibly upset with the red zone period.
Yeah.
He took them all in the corner. We're going to work on this stuff again. I see that. But, where is the coaching? Like Debo goes through multiple reps where he's getting shellacked. He's getting strapped.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm watching him go back to the huddle, go back to the sideline. There's nobody consulting with him, nobody talking to him. He's kind of just doing his own thing.
Yeah.
When the offense fails or the offense makes a bad play, you could see some deliberation where they're trying to get to the crux of what exactly happened. But for what it's worth, practice moves at such a rapid pace and it moves so fastly that I think that they're honestly just trying to figure out what fits and what doesn't. I didn't see a lot of coaching.
Yeah.
I didn't see a lot of, you see it, Indy, you see it, right? Yeah. Indy, you see it. Coach Kasarik actually had a really good drill that we saw, this numbered pass rush drill that we saw that was amazing with some kind of like state-of-the-art RoboCop suits on.
Yeah.
These guys had like pecs with numbers on them, chest and stuff. It's really creative. It's something that we both saw during practice. And I understand that being in Indy is when you get most of like your kind of hands-on coaching. But in team, there is not only coaching, but there's a sense of pride. There's our whole unit going against another unit, right? We spent most of practice on 2 different fields. It's time for us to really get it going. Like as far as I can always remember, even when I played, team was a reward.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You want to get through all of the other dumb shit so you can get to teams.
Yeah.
Right? So we can actually play some version of real football.
Yeah.
Right? And when we got to the version of real football where these guys played together, it was disjointed. I see Jair Brown is gonna be somebody that's gonna step up for us. He seemed ready to go today. He had a really good hit on Debo on an end around where Brock was the lead blocker.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of crazy.
Yeah, that was funny. Yeah.
That was kind of crazy. They did an end around where Debo got the ball. Brock came out on the other side, on the left-hand side of his lead blocker. Debo came out in front of Brock, bled out on the left-hand side, and then Jair Brown came down from the far
and just laid him out.
And just laid his ass out, bro. Like with reckless abandon. Also, you look at Ronnie Bell. Ronnie Bell looks like he's fighting for his life. I will tell you that. As far as the pass, I saw him in pass drills today. He's trying so hard to stick out. I'm seeing he's going after every bad ball he's being thrown.
Mm-hmm.
You could tell that he understands that the writing is on the wall as far as there being a shakeup with the wide receiver room. Also, you kind of steady Eddie with the receiving room. Chris Conley.
Yeah.
Chris Conley came here.
He was that way last year in training camp.
Steady
too.
Eddie, man.
Yeah.
Like not too high, not too low.
Yeah.
I'm going to catch my digs, going to catch my outs, toss the ball to the side. I'm getting back to go get another rep.
Dare I say Trent Taylor?
Trent Taylor. Steady Eddie.
Yeah.
Came in.
He had 2 touchdowns today.
He had 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So let's get into Brock. Okay. So there wasn't a lot of Brock consistently because in the move the ball period and in red zone, they switch out randomly, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, this is perfect. The question is, was Brock just bad today, or did the O-line really just not do him any favors? So this is great. This goes into it perfectly.
Well, for the most part, the offensive line didn't do him any favors.
Oh, the offensive line didn't do any of the quarterbacks any.
They didn't do any of the quarterbacks. That's all right. There you go. So the offensive line didn't give any of the quarterbacks they didn't do them any favors.
Yeah.
However, Brock was pressing. I can see that processing is kind of one of the best things that he does. Not even kind of, it is.
Yeah.
It's his strength. And you can see that he was missing reads or baking reads where he was holding the ball to try to will himself to a route that he wanted to throw.
Yeah.
I saw that multiple times today. He threw 2 picks today.
2 picks, yeah.
Odom and Fred?
No. It was who?
Odom got one, and I think Fred got
3?
one.
No,
I think he had 3 picks today.
Yeah, because one of them was to Willis. Remember, Willis laid out that was not in the red zone, and it was I forget who picked it. Here, I've got it here. I'll have to go through and look at it for sure too, but he might have had 3.
Yeah. Push around.
At any rate, regardless, I guess when excuse me, after this show, we're gonna go onto my channel. That's what I'll do is I'll go play by play, and then we can talk through it. See if I don't know how you took notes versus how I took notes, but
I took them about the period.
Yeah. Okay. So we can literally go through play by play and just quickly talk through like what we saw and then kind of the break, because you were looking at different things than I was. So together we can piece these plays together. But and we'll give you you'll be able to get the full context and stats and everything there. But what I will say is the offensive line didn't do any of the quarterbacks any favors. Unfortunately for Brock, he was the only one that was throwing interceptions and making crazy crossbody throws that just they don't need to happen. They don't need to happen. So it wasn't his best day, but one thing I'll say about Brock and being there last year, he always, if he had a bad day or an average day, the next day was always his best day.
Yeah.
So I think tomorrow you're going to see his best day. We also there is a lot of context that goes into this, right? Because it's not just the offensive line, but George Kittle wasn't there today. I don't believe Juice was in there.
Juice wasn't there. CMC wasn't there.
CMC wasn't in there. Now, defensively, Mooney wasn't there. Bosa wasn't there. So, there was stars out on both sides. But just overall, I would say that the offense was probably, when you mix in the offensive line players that are missing and Ayuk already out, the offense was more depleted than the defense was of stars. So, overall, wasn't Brock's best day. But it was the offensive line certainly didn't do anybody any favors. And you know what? Brock, for all I care, could screw up every single day. I'll talk about it. I'm going to report on it, but I'm not going to belabor the point or make it bigger than what it has to be.
One day.
Because he plays really well in the regular season, and that's all I care about. So, JP Mason, is he taking the number 2 spot? Talked about that a little bit. Really, really good day from him. He physically looks the part. I know you were impressed by him, but I will say today I thought Elijah Mitchell was the best of the running backs. He ran with more juice than anybody. There was 2 plays where he ended with physical contact. One of them was a bigger run, but when it came time to tackle, a lot of the times these guys are just kind of easily going down, or they pop pads with the linebacker or what have you. He was consistently finishing and looking for contact. He was playing with more enthusiasm than I've seen him play with in a long time. And maybe that's because he knows that Mason is coming for his job.
Yeah.
This is the competition you're looking for. So we'll see what Kyle ends up doing. I know that Kyle talked very favorably of Mason after practice again today.
And had to even preface it with no offense to Elijah.
Yes.
Like
yes.
that you could that's how you know he knows Elijah's gonna hear this
for sure.
and go back to him.
For sure. And Mason was the first guy to take the ball.
He was
the first running back up. So right now
he looks the part, man.
It looks like Mason's going to be your number 2 running back, barring something crazy happening. But today, I think Mitchell was the more impressive player.
I mean, it's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
They both ran hard today. Yeah. Jordan, to be honest, is that I almost agree with you, but I disagree with you from a different perspective. Is that yes, Elijah did have the better impressive runs today.
Yeah.
But
pass catcher wise,
Jordan.
Pass catcher wise, yeah. But
Jordan was actually catching the ball out of the backfield today.
Yeah.
That's the levels to this. Yeah. Where now I feel like, and in a way, sometimes old eyes love to see what they're used to, meaning that we're almost kind of pining for Elijah to give us back what we've seen from him right in years past, and being able to see him pop is something that kind of like raises your eyebrows.
Yeah, it was nice.
For me, it's levels. Jordan Mason doesn't have to do that, because the truth of the matter is that Jordan Mason is not going to do what he usually does to his teammates. So you're not going to get the full effect of what Jordan Mason does best in a padded practice. You're just not, right? And with Elijah's going to be able to see light and go, right? He's still a 4-3-4-4 guy. We know that Jordan Mason isn't, right?
Yeah.
So, this isn't one of these days where the beauty of seeing Jordan Mason run the ball is being able to give him the ball on his 10th time. That's when he turns on. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like when he gets his 10th carry, then it's like, all right.
Yeah.
The beauty of what we got now is going to start coming out. So seeing them in a short sample size, that's why I was willing to give Jordan a little bit more of a nod of being like the running back of the day for practice today, because he was actually impressive from not only running the ball, but he did something that the catching the ball out of the backfield is just not what we've seen him do a lot. And you can see that they're going to him a lot more with that. So,
that was one of the things that I noted last year, Coach, was at practice. It was obvious he didn't know where to be when he wasn't running the football.
Right.
He was consistently
what do I do with my hands?
Running the wrong routes. Exactly. It was clear. And I brought it up multiple times throughout the year. I did shows with Larry, I did shows with Grant, and they both were just pining for him to play. And I agree. I thought he should play, but it was obvious to me, knowing Kyle and how much he puts in, you've got to know the offense before you get a lot of burn. It was obvious the reason he wasn't playing isn't because of the talent level. It's because he just wasn't comfortable in the offense when he wasn't touching the football as a runner. This year, that is not the case at all.
Not at
Unless today was a flash in the pan. He ran the right routes consistently. He was always the dump off guy. He was where he needed to be, and he was on the same page with all of the quarterbacks. That was not the case last year. That is going to get him on the field, and that's likely what's going to ultimately push him over to be the number 2 guy, because he is, regardless of what we saw from Mitchell today, he is a more physical runner, and he can bring something that none of the other running backs on this team can bring, play in and play out, because he's just so physically imposing.
100%. I agree with everything you said. I'm just waiting for him to get his love. One thing that I wanted to retract right now, just from being here right at practice, is that I've been pushing this narrative where I think Jordan Mason is possibly going to be trade bait, because they picked up the kid out of the Packers. What's his kid's name?
Mason or Mitchell is going to be trade bait?
Mason.
You thought Mason would be trade bait?
I thought Mason was, because I didn't see anything viable, because they picked up Taylor, the running back from the Packers. I have seen all of the running backs sans Christian McCaffrey today, even Tanner Mordecai. No, Cody Schrader. Sorry. They would be ridiculously foolish to let go of Jordan Mason.
Oh, yeah. They're not letting him go.
The kid out of the Packers is not going to be here long.
No.
He's not going to be here long. He's going. They're going to move on from him.
Also, unless Grendo gets his stuff together, because he's got the hamstring issue and didn't practice as well. We haven't talked about him. The running back room looks very full. Schrader looks pretty good too.
He does. He got some pop.
So maybe Mitchell's a guy that they trade, or what, roster politics. Schrader doesn't make it. They try to sneak him on the practice squad. I don't know, but I have a hard time finding how Garendo makes this roster, just based off of how the other 4 look.
Well, the only way that he's going to stay around is that if Kyle kind of just starts picking him up as like, one of his lovable guys, he becomes a new Jalen Hurd.
Yeah.
Where it's like he just can't get that skill set out of his mind.
I can't quit you.
Exactly, bro. So, I mean, for me, man, the running back room looks full. Receiver room, I don't know. There's more left to be desired. I wasn't impressed with what they did today. Juwan is going to be a guy. Debo can't get open. Ricky Pearsall, he was, he basically had on a flotation device the whole time. Nobody touched him.
Yeah.
He didn't go in team. They're still rolling him out.
Yeah.
So we didn't even really see that much of Ricky Pearsall today outside of special teams.
Well, speaking of special teams, Clarzard asks a question: are they practicing the new return? And then also going back to Garindo, that is how he could potentially make this team, is if he is maybe a return guy with these new rules. As far as practicing, no, I didn't see him practice that at all. In fact, we had talked about it on the bus on the way back.
We were disappointed.
You guys don't know how this rule is going to play. Shanahan, I think, talked about it in the press conference about like, oh, there's just so many different things that we have to work out with it.
Yeah.
Well, how are you going to work it out if you're not practicing it?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't practice it. So I don't know. Oh, you know what? Moody, 4 for 4 today.
Oh,
I think that's worth talking about as
well.
He
was, man.
Yeah, Moody
Go
went
ahead,
4-4.
Mooney. So if there's ever a time for me to like give credit to kickers, man, I won't. So
yeah. Like, Moody was 4 for 4 today.
Yeah, you were 4 for 4
because
today.
People are going to wonder that. Yeah.
Okay.
Nick says, how was Green looking? Fantastic.
Ronaldo Green looks good.
They had him playing inside. They had him playing outside. He had a great pass breakup.
I thought it was a pick
against Jennings.
Yes.
Yeah. They I think they ruled it incomplete, but man, he was on Jennings. Jennings actually had beaten him to the right side of the end zone. The ball was thrown pretty damn well, actually, by Purdy, and Green just closed that gap.
Closed the speed. He was actually beat on technique, and he closed the speed.
He's nice.
He's not afraid of the moment.
No.
One thing I'll say about Ronaldo Green is that he's live. He's handsy now.
Yeah,
he's handsy. So we may have to watch what the penalties down the line. But as far as him being game and actually fitting the part and wanting to be a contributor, an early contributor on this defense, I see that from Ronaldo Green. I also see that from Malik Mustafa. But Malik Mustafa looked good.
He did, but let's be fair. He
disappeared.
He did, and he also wasn't one of the starters. Odom was the starter.
Odom
started, and he got a pick today.
Yes,
he got a pick today.
So there's a lot of guys that, because we're so used to trying to look for the new contributors, that we just want to cast away the old ones.
Yeah.
But Odom impressed me today. Right now, I mean, for what it's worth, he's a guy.
He's built more like a corner, though.
Yeah, he is. He's a guy. But I'll say Ronaldo Green looked ready for the moment. He looked very, very responsive. All right, playing in that nickel position. And I dare to say that he looked good against somebody who's actually going to give him good reps in Juwan.
And his body type fits the nickel role. I think he's a smaller corner, a little bit smaller. He looks smaller in person than what I kind of expected. Yadam looks just massive compared to everybody, but even like with Ambry Thomas and stuff, he's just not quite as long, I don't believe, as those guys. And so I think that he's probably better suited for nickel, but also he competes on the outside.
We got a lot of length.
Yeah.
The DB's got a facelift. We got a facelift over the offseason.
Yeah, I think it's the strength of the team. Well, I think this is probably a good way to end this portion of the stream.
Awesome.
So here's how we're going to do this throughout the whole week, y'all. We're either going to start on Coach's channel or mine, and then we're going to flip. We're basically doing a halftime because YouTube doesn't like us to take the same content and dual stream. So this is how we have to do it. So what we're going to do over on my channel in a minute, give us about 5 minutes or so. We'll be live over there, Last Second Sports. So if you're here and you're still enjoying the content, move over to Last Second Sports. And we're going to go through play-by-play and break down everything that happened during the 11 on 11 so that you can get a feel of what we were looking at. And we'll give as much of a detailed look into practice as possible. So signing off. We'll see you shortly over at Last Second Sports.
Stay low and keep your feet moving.